Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We are delighted to be having a PCI talk on dreams, a topic that a lot of you find quite interesting and fascinating, as do I myself. We're joined today by Mike Hackett, Senior Faculty Lecturer with PCI College and our dreams expert. And delighted to hand over to Mike to delve into the world of dreams.
Hello, everybody, and thanks very much, Jade, for participating in this talk today. I'm really looking forward to talking about something I really love and enjoy talking about. So I'm looking forward to today. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about why people find dreams so fascinating from your point of view?
Yeah, I guess it's a good question. Everybody dreams every single night, multiple times a night. But the number of people who report not dreaming, what they're really actually saying is they don't remember dreaming. We do dream, and we dream. There are very, very, very few people in the world, usually due to neurological impairment or a brain injury, who don't dream the same way as everybody else does. But essentially, everybody dreams every night. Even we, as far as we're aware, almost all mammals dream as well. Dogs and cats and apes, and we're all the mammal family, so we all dream.
Very interesting. I imagine there's a few people that might disagree with you on that one, who hold fast on thinking, I definitely don't dream. You say that that's just that we don't remember our dreams.
Yeah.
How can we help ourselves to remember dreams and prove your theory right?
Good question. Well, I think the first thing is, if you think about anything in life, whether it's your physical shape, your exercise, you have to practice in order for you to keep yourself the way you want to keep yourself. So, for example, if you are conscious of your weight, we'll say, you have to set an intention to deliberately manage your weight, eat properly, exercise well, and do all those things very deliberately. And it's a little bit like that with dreams. If we want to remember and record and use our dreams, we have to be somewhat deliberate in wanting to do so. So setting our intention to remember our dreams is a really good place to start. And then we can start to record them once we catch the very first one.
So a little bit of self-talk even before we go to sleep, something along the lines of, tonight I'm going to remember my dream. I would really like to remember my dream. Something like that?
Absolutely. Or a very practical solution. There's a very famous dream theorist who has written a book called The Committee of Sleep. And the idea is that we can go to bed with a particular question on our minds. And when we drift off, we're handing over that question to the committee of sleep to deal with during the night. So sometimes we can wake up with maybe even more questions than we had before going to bed. And sometimes we can wake up with insights or solutions that we never thought that we would get if we thought about it for a long time otherwise.
Very wizarding world of Harry Potter stuff there, Mike. How do we get answers from our dreams, and how do they give us insight?
Yeah, so what we tend to be concerned about during our waking lives turn up all the time in our dreams. So Freud famously called that day residue. The stuff that we think about or we experience during the day becomes the material from which our dreams are built during the night. But as dream psychology and dream research has evolved over the last number of years, the more we know that emotion and the things that we're concerned about tend to be the things that we dream about most. And in times like these, our concerns are often very different to the ones that we've had before things like lockdown and coronavirus came into our everyday language. Things that are emotionally intense turn up in dreams all the time. That's why people tend to remember nightmares much more than they remember the ordinary everyday dreams.
So would it be fair to say that people might be experiencing more intense dreams or more intense emotions during dreams, or even more nightmares now, given what's happening with COVID-19?
Absolutely. And there have been a few studies, very, very recent studies, that have been looking at how our dreams have changed. So, for example, a very well-known theorist, another one, Deirdre Barrett and a few others, Dan Siegel, have looked at dreams during other traumatic experiences like 9/11 in the States, for example, and how people's dreams as a result of that. And we are seeing our own dreams change a little bit as a result of COVID-19. and in strange and interesting ways.
Okay, so our stress, our fears, they show up in our dreams. But our dreams often just don't make sense. They jump. Time isn't valued in dreams. Characters are skewed. Strange people, strange circumstances. We've special powers in dreams sometimes. How do you make sense of all of that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's a question that people who've been interested in dreams, either professionally or personally, for a very long time have wondered about, actually. I suppose my own theory, if I can call it a theory, is that, are you familiar with the expression, a picture paints 1,000 words?
Yeah.
So our dreams are encoded using symbols and images because they capture an awful lot more information than words ever could. So that's why often, sometimes if you start to write down a dream, you can have thousands and thousands of words to go or to describe what a simple dream seems to have been during the night. So words are less helpful in many respects because we have to translate our experience at night into a form of words. The experience itself is full of symbolism and metaphor and memory and emotion. So the kind of holy trinity of dreaming is an image or a symbol, an emotion that accompanies that, and a memory that evokes in us from either our day life or from the past, for example.
I was asking about how our dreams can disguise parts of our waking life and hide meaning for us.
Yeah. So I guess if we go back to Freud's theory is that we disguise our dreams to protect our sleep. Sleep is very important. So if we dreamt literally everything that we were experiencing, we probably wouldn't get a wink of sleep, especially if our concerns were to the forefront. I'm not sure that we generally agree with that anymore. It seems to be more about the way our brains encode information, store information, process information. We tend to make connections between symbols, images, feelings, and memories much quicker than we do things like static lists of words or narrative or stories. Human beings have told each other stories way before we had a written form of words. And probably some of those things that we shared in the very distant past were our dreams around campfires and around tribal centers and things like that. So this idea of our creative, our symbolic mind has been with us for a very long time.
Okay. Do you have any tips of how we can work through some of the symbols and hidden meanings that might appear in our dreams?
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of dream dictionaries, and most people will be familiar with, books saying 10,000 dreams decoded or symbols described, dream symbols described. But these are generally not really very helpful because think about somebody who has a phobia of dogs, we'll say, somebody who's afraid of dogs. Their dreaming mind, including the symbol of a dog, would be very different to somebody who absolutely loves dogs, who keeps dogs, who has a favorite pet dog, or who has in the past. So the idea of looking up the word dog in a dream dictionary is not really going to help very much because it's specific to your own experience of that word dog. And you'll have your own associations and ideas and memories that come with that. So let's say you dream of a dog. Well, then how would you try to make sense of a dog? Well, one of the questions you'd start with asking yourself is, well, what is a dog? So you might say, well, a dog is loyal, and a dog is friendly, and a dog is a guard. It guards me, protects me. So you might take those three associative words, and then you'd apply them to your current experience. In what way am I friendly or need to be friendly? In what way am I loyal or need to be more loyal? In what way do I need to guard something or need to be guarded from something? And when you ask those kind of questions, you can often start to get a handle on what's happening in your daytime experience, your waking experience, that those questions may be relevant to.
So what you're saying is not to take the images and the symbols in the dreams at face value, to look at them in terms of what meaning we make from them and how they apply to our waking life.
Exactly. Because dreaming of a dog, you could have dreamt of any tens of thousands of animals, but you didn't. You specifically dreamt of a dog.
Mm.
Therefore, that dog carries some specific meaning for you. Otherwise, you would have dreamt of anything.
Yeah.
If you had a dog, let's say during the day, or you had an encounter with a dog, the likelihood is a dog would show up in your dreaming mind, day residue, as Freud said from earlier. But the point is that your mind is trying to make sense or tell you something about your experience. And that's why dreams are very useful.
Working with somebody through dreams. Can I share that with you and see what you think?
Sure, yeah.
So I was working with somebody who was going through a separation, a divorce, and, was quite consumed with that, with the relationship and the breakdown of the relationship with their partner, and dreamt about their friend, a very, very good friend of theirs. But their friend was different in character in the dream. The traits were different. They were hostile. They were very pushy. Just not a negative energy around that person. And the friend's name in the dream was Alex,
Mm-hmm.
rather than what friend's real name actually was.
Mm-hmm.
So when we broke that down and looked at the traits and the characteristics and who those traits reminded that person of in their waking life, they were able to associate some of them to their separated partner. And then when we looked at the name Alex and broke that down, a trick that you taught me, Mike, is to take the name apart. Actually, we're left with was all X.
Yeah.
So fascinating, really interesting, and very similar to what you're advising us to do there. So it's great.
Yeah, puns turn up all the time in dreams, like a pun, Alex, all X. It makes perfect sense in our dreaming minds, full stop. But we often would never make those associations until you have a conversation about the dream. It's always better, you get more out of a dream if you've shared it with somebody else, because you can engage in a conversation, and these associations, these ideas, these links come together much more actively than if you were to try and do it on your own. You can, of course, and there are many techniques to do it on your own, but sharing one is really, really helpful.
So would you share something with us about dreaming now, some COVID dreams that you might have some insight into? Would that be okay?
Absolutely. So I myself have been recording my own dreams on and off for about 25 years since I was quite young. So I've always had an interest and a fascination in dreams. So in fact, a recent project has just kicked off by a New Zealand university that is collecting the dreams of people from all over the world that are specifically happening during this period of COVID-19. So in fact, I've actually submitted one of my own dreams to the database for future study. So that would be quite interesting to see what happens there. So recently, in the last few weeks before this whole COVID-19 thing kicked off, and our world changed, I had a bit of a respiratory infection myself. And as a result of that, my own anxiety, my own worry as to whether that could be COVID-19 brought my dreams very much into the fore. So I had a terrible nightmare one night in which I was in a hospital, but the room wasn't like a room on a ward where you'd have beds lined up against the walls. It was completely square and completely white. And my bed was the only bed, and it was right in the center of this room. And in one of the corners were a number of medical people, but they were completely ignoring me. And I was coughing, and I had all this gunk coming up off my lungs. It was really profoundly awful. And I started to become panicked in the dream because nobody was paying attention. I felt like I was being ignored. And this dream progressed and got scarier and scarier until I literally woke myself up out of sleep as a result of it. So that the salience, we call that the salience of the dream, lingered so much that I wrote it down the next morning. And when I looked at it, it was reflecting my own body, my own health at that point, my vulnerability being exposed in the center of this room, knowing that there were medical people around, but knowing that they weren't paying any attention to me, and trying to seek some kind of engagement with them which was very much, I think, what all of us experience, which is that idea of isolation. We're locked away in our homes. We don't come into contact with people. We find it hard to go out and have access to the same resources that we would have before all this started. So my dream very much reflected my own experience. But the interesting thing about it is what I did with that dream. So a nightmare, usually, in my experience anyway, is something I'm not paying attention to in my waking life that needs some attention. And so your mind's eye evokes that sense of fearfulness. And in doing so, it propels us with an option to look at the dream and what need is not being satisfied when we're awake. So what I did was I spoke to people about how vulnerable I was feeling, that I was unwell, and I sought some resources from contact with friends and colleagues, which really dissipated the need for me to continue dreaming that way. And guess what? I haven't had that dream since.
Amazing. That's amazing stuff. It's so fascinating. And one of the things actually that would be nice to finish up with, Mike, is that bit about doing something with your dream that you just mentioned there. Talk us through the magic wand, or, if you could change one thing. Tell us a little bit about that part of working with your dreams.
Yeah, so I think there's really three things about dreams that are of interest. The first one is having the experience. Well, that's interesting because our experiences are very rich often, and your dreaming experience is perhaps one of the most rich experiences you can have. The second one is generating awareness from your dream as to how you are in your life just now, something that increases your sense of yourself. Where am I at? What do I need? Where am I going? What is my experience telling me about me? So it's kind of a personal development bit. And then the third bit is, how can my dream material be relevant to some action I need to take in the world that would actually either meet a need that I'm not aware of or I'm not looking after, or help me grow in a way that I didn't previously know to grow in, for example. So that last part, we can use a technique or a tool called the magic wand trick. And the idea is, if you hold in your mind's eye the last part of the dream, and you hand yourself a pen or some implement, a stick, it can be a fork, it can be in anything that is standing in for this idea of a magic wand. And you empower yourself to say, with this magic wand, I can change that dream in any way, defying the laws of physics, going back in time, going forward in time. I can literally do anything whatsoever with this magic wand. How would I wave it and influence the outcome of the dream, any part of the dream? And what you'll usually find is spontaneously your mind will say, oh, well, what I would do then is all the people who were ignoring me using my own dream would suddenly surround me and would say, are you okay? Do you need anything? And how would I feel then once I got the attention that I felt that I didn't have access to? Well, I felt good. I felt at peace. I felt a bit rested. Well, that then we can then translate to, how do I need to act on that magic wand insight in my waking life? Who do I need to talk about my experience with? What support or help, what attention might I need, even in sharing my experience without somebody having to help me? But just really to be present and to listen, for example, might be enough. So the magic wand can be used for that purpose, action orientated.
Fascinating. And can we link that into them children who are having dreams at this time, nightmares perhaps, or unsettling dreams, and giving them a sense of power back around that?
Absolutely. So typically children will dream of monsters, right? Monsters are a big feature in children, generally speaking, because monsters become the embodiment of all of their fears. It's an external object of the fear rather than hold their own fear inside themselves, because they don't have yet the developmental capacity to work and regulate themselves necessarily. So sometimes kids will say, oh, in the press there's a monster, or under the bed there's a monster. So like that, one of the things that parents can do is give them a flashlight. And in that, they can shine light into the dark place where their fears live. But the flashlight becomes the equivalent of a magic wand. You equip the child with the tool, the power to seek out and self-regulate and find a way of dispelling the darkness using that tool of light, for example. And in the same way, you can help a child using a magic wand tool with a dream that they may have an anxiety dream or a fearful dream or a nightmare. You can say, gosh, I wonder what would happen if we did this thing or did this differently. Or if you could do anything, let's say they dream of a wicked witch, how would we make the wicked witch go away? You know, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, we'd throw a pail of water at her and she'd melt. So you help the child creatively seek solutions using this magic tool to dissipate or dispel their own anxiety and teach them to self-regulate as a result.
Brilliant. That's absolutely fascinating. I can't wait to surrender my dreams now to the committee asleep tonight. Mike, to sum up, what would you leave us with? You know, using our dreams as a tool of reflection, of development, of just even understanding how we're feeling on a day-to-day level. What can you leave us with to help work through that for us?
Yeah, so I think dreams tend to be the thing that we look at last because we've got all kinds of other things to occupy us: work, family, commitment, health, well-being, generally speaking. But so I think our dreams are a hugely undervalued resource because they are essentially and uniquely us. They tell us an awful lot about our experience, that a little bit like mindful practice can help you regulate and be at peace and be present to your experience. I believe dreams are just as powerful because there is nowhere to hide from your own dreams. Your own dreams are your most authentic experience of what's happening for you. So if we pay attention to them, even if they sound bizarre or weird or we can't make sense of them, we're actually paying attention to ourselves. And isn't that a wonderful thing, a wonderful gift to give ourselves at a time when loneliness and a time when isolation is forced almost upon us? So we can use dreams, as Freud said, the royal road to our unconscious, a way in which we can connect with ourselves in deeper levels and understand ourselves in ways perhaps we never would have given ourselves any credit for. That's the opportunity, Jade.
Wonderful. Let's all grab that tonight. Thanks very much, Mike, for that insightful talk. And I hope you all dream well.
It's my pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye.